Welcome to the April 25th meeting of the Rotary Club of Ames. Thank you for standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for any individuals or families that we can keep in our hearts and our minds. Does anyone have anyone in mind that we should keep in our thoughts? Karen and I were not aware of any. Absolutely, good thought. Take a couple minutes. You can be seated, thank you. Right, we have 3 visitors. The first one, John Huber, brought a guest. John, if you could give a wave and Louis will run a mic over to you. Your mic's coming.
I'd like to introduce my guest today, Dan Keeker. He and I play golf together, and I only have one bad problem with him. He outdrives me every damn time.
Andrew Allen has a guest today, right in front of you, Louis.
Oh, Andrew Allen, I'd like to introduce Amy Doyle. Amy is our VP of Philanthropy and Community Engagement. She's been with us almost a year, an attorney from Des Moines.
And up front here, Park Woodle has a guest today.
Yes, as you know, I'm fairly new to the club as of 2021. And I'm assistant governor now, but today my pleasure is to introduce my wife, Dr. Susan Woodle. She works out of town in physical therapy and so is not a prospective member, I'm sorry to say.
Welcome to you all, and I will play for you, but you'll have to do the singing yourself.
At this time, I will invite Jean Cressy to the microphone to introduce our new members.
Thank you. Which one I have first? So it's my privilege to introduce 2 new Rotarians this morning or this afternoon. To my left is Steve Johnson. He and his wife, Martha, moved to Iowa. Am I echoing? No, okay. 2 years ago from Annapolis, Maryland, in it's called Chasing Grandchildren movie. And it's a move. I called it a movie. Their daughter Anna and her husband Mark accommodated them by having a grandson in December of 2020. And by self-declaration, he is very, very cute, Mr. Zachary. Prior to their move here, they lived in Annapolis since 1988, where Steve had also been a Rotary member. Steve and Martha are an MBA couple. He describes himself as the liberal MBA son of a liberal professor and describes Martha as a liberal MBA daughter of a liberal preacher. They met when she was Cummings recruiter and he was coming out of Stanford Business School. Martha headed up the General Services Administration for President Obama for 2 years, and Steve's was the president of the Drivers Association of Denver Yellow Cab, and in 1979, he led a driver buyout of the cab company that turned into a driver-owned co-op. And just a little bit more, in 2015, they took their home in Annapolis completely off fossil fossil fuels. So I think he would be a program at some point too, to talk about that.
Yeah.
All right, my next one is on my right. Lisa Heddens, she attended Iowa State University and has been in the community since 1984. She has 2 adult children, Mackenzie and Paul. She's married to John Magley, I was going to guess that. And being married to John, she has now learned a lot about guitars and amps, and she has lots of them, or he has lots of them. So if you want to borrow one, contact Lisa. She has served in the State House for 17 years on a variety of committees, and she has also served as a ranking member of the Health and Human Services budget. She is most notably known for her work on mental health and disability issues and her ability to work across party lines to sponsor passage legislation that provides increased services, greater access, and increased opportunities for people with disabilities. Lisa's work and dedication in the disability field spans over 2 decades. Most recently, she is, prior to her time as supervisor now, she was the executive director for NAMI of Central Iowa. In June of 2019, Lisa was appointed to serve on the Board of Supervisors here in Story County, and she represents Story County on the following boards, and there's quite a few. So think about, I'm going to read them all. I think it's impressive, but you have to think about it. Being on a board isn't just one and done. There's a lot of commitment. So Aging Resources of Central Iowa, Ames Mini Assessors, as opposed to Maxius, never mind. Board of Health, Ames Economic Development Commission, Central Iowa Workforce Development Region 11, Central Iowa Community Services, also known as CICS, Heart of Iowa Transit, also known as HERTA, and the State County Courthouse Security Committee. I'll have to talk to you about that one. In her free time, Lisa enjoys traveling, spending time with her families and friends. And if you haven't heard, she does have a new puppy. She also likes to listen to music and cooking as she's entertaining her new puppy. A fun fact of Lisa, in 9th grade, Lisa's history teacher gave extra credit to students who could recite all the presidents' names, first, last, or both, and she can still recite all of the last names in order. So without further ado, here's Lisa. I give you Steve and Lisa, and I'm going to hand the microphone over to our past president, Don Goring. Don't clap yet.
About 20 minutes ago, I was asked to give a charge. So here we go. All right. We're about to become a member of the largest service club in the world, Rotary International. Probably the largest service club in Ames. Okay. Service, service above self. There are 3 other avenues of service that we adhere to. Service to our club. You'll be asked to get involved. Service to our community and service to the world. The service to the world, I can point out one project. Back in 1985, Rotary decided to eradicate polio from the world. As of today, 2 cases have been identified in the world. So we're on our way towards the eradication of polio. So with that in mind, welcome to the Rotary Club of Ames. Become active, get to know this group of people. Don't sit at the same table every day like I do. Anyway, on behalf of Rotary Club of Ames, welcome to our membership.
Thank you so much.
Good job, Louis. Thank you. Thank you, Don. Thank you. World Immunization Week is April 24th through the 30th. And we are still in need of a couple volunteers for the Miracle League Saturday sessions. If you are interested, please contact us. You can sign up for one day or all the sessions, just whatever works with your schedule. Right, my pleasure to introduce our speaker. Andrew Allen is president and CEO of YSS, a 45-year-old youth development agency with more than 300 employees serving more than 20,000 youth across Iowa each year. YSS helps youth stand strong by providing children, teen, and young adults the opportunity to find their voice, make healthy choices, learn life skills, heal with compassion, and grow their confidence through an array of prevention, treatment, child welfare, and transitional services. Allen has been recognized with the Fortune 500 Hero Award from the Fortune magazine, was named the inaugural Young Professional of the Year by Juice magazine and the Des Moines Register. And part of the Des Moines Business Record's 40 Under 40 has received the Outstanding Young Alumnus Award from Iowa State University and was inducted into the Iowa Volunteer Hall of Fame by the state of Iowa. I welcome Andrew Allen to the stage.
Happy Monday. Really appreciate the opportunity to come and address friends and colleagues and so many people that have supported YSS over our 46-year history. Obviously, none greater than my predecessor, our founder, the guy that I call Iowa's greatest friend to children, George Blitzo. So thank you, George. I was looking at the average tenure of executive directors of nonprofits, and I think I've just exceeded, it was about 6 years. I've been in the role almost 7 years. I think on the first week of my employment, I got signed up for Rotary and he had me speak. So the thing is, taking over from a founder, a guy like George, who's got huge shoes. I said I could never fill them. We were going to bronze them and put them off to the side. So I'm just grateful every day. George, believed in me personally, professionally, really helped create me, the person that I am today, and the reason that I was able to succeed him. I also want to acknowledge so many people in the room. I think almost every table has some sort of a representative of YSS has served on a committee or a board. Would you stand if you've ever served on a committee or a board of YSS so that we can recognize you as well? If you haven't served in an official capacity, I'm sure it's been, an informal, unofficial capacity. George was great at getting people connected, and it's really, the reason that we are who we are as an organization. So thanks so much. I've got some slides. I'm going to leave some time at the end for questions, but I really want to share a little bit about where YSS is at, talk a little bit about what's going on from a youth mental health standpoint in the state, and then talk about some projects that we've got going. I love coming to work every day. For 15 years, I worked for Principal Financial Group, and there's sure nothing wrong with publicly traded companies, but my goal almost every day was return on shareholder value. And so today, Amy and I get out of bed and we come to work every day to create hope and opportunity. So it's pretty cool to get a chance to get to do that. And our vision is, and really we borrowed this from, the roots of George, a world where youth are valued and empowered to stand strong. Essentially, young people just don't have a voice oftentimes. And that's the role that YSS plays in this community across the state. We've got a new tagline that we're working on, thanks to Amy and her team, that we empower youth by doing three things: education to build healthy minds and bodies, counseling to overcome life's challenges, and stability to focus on the future. We don't do this alone. So here's my leadership team. I could not be more proud of this group of individuals, representing nearly 350 employees. And as was read in my introduction, almost 20,000 kids and families impacted by YSS every year. In some cases, it's a quick hit, maybe 4 hours at Teen Maze over in Boone. You've got a young person. We had 1,200 young people, 7th graders from across central Iowa, going through a teen maze and learning about different elements of adolescence. Or in other cases, it could be intensive inpatient treatment that could last, it's 24/7, could last as much as 4 months. So I did want to put a slide that said EOS at YSS drives impact. I won't go into our deployment of the entrepreneurial operating system, but YSS runs a management system called EOS based on the book written by Gino Wickman called Traction. I know Dan runs it at the chamber and other folks across this community use it. It wasn't necessarily made for nonprofits. It was more small to medium-sized businesses, but you can't be in this space today and not think about the work that you do as a business. We have a double bottom line at YSS, right? So it's not just financial as it would be in the for-profit sector, but it's also not simply just purpose-driven. We've got to focus both on purpose and financial stability in order to, continue to create impact. So we use EOS, and that's my team at a recent offsite focused on developing quarterly rocks in the strategy for the organization. An update on a few major projects and some initiatives, especially as we come out of the pandemic. And the need that has created. You can see, YSS has a community-based approach. So we've got 3 statewide contracts that are serving kids from across the state. But in each of the locations where you see a dot, we've got a local community advisory board. We've got a director or a coordinator. We've got boots on the ground in each of those communities where we're providing services. Prior to my coming, well, at the time that I came, we didn't consummate or finish the merger until after I was on board. But YSS merged with Francis Lauer in Mason City. Francis Lauer is about 10% of our size, 30 employees, about a $2 million budget. It's difficult to be a small nonprofit today, especially when you're competing for big state grants and contracts. It's hard to get scale. And so was really excited to partner with an organization that we had a rich history with in Mason City. We're doing a lot of different things up there. It almost feels like a little mini YSS serving North Iowa. We rolled out adolescent addiction treatment a few years ago, and we just we're kind of about 70% of the way through a $4 million renovation. And in addition to that campus, we built a new gym and continue to meet the needs of North Iowa from a behavioral health standpoint. So you can see phase, I think 4, 5, and 6 may be coming soon. I'm really excited at some of the innovation that's taking place in Des Moines. So in Des Moines, we're known as Iowa Homeless Youth Centers, IHYC. We've got a big event called Reggie's Sleep Out. We tried to give it a run here in Ames for a few years. Some of you participated and helped out in different fashions. We're bringing it back in Des Moines live. We had done it virtually for a couple of years, October 29th. So sure want to put a plug in for Reggie's Sleep Out to support homeless youth. Not just in Polk County, but across the state where YSS is providing services. This is an innovative project where essentially we partnered with the developer, Jack Hatch and Michael Kiernan, to develop a low-income housing tax credit project. This is 42 units on 6th Avenue. If you're in Des Moines and you happen to be on 235 and you get off on 6th Avenue and you head north, you'll see Mercy Hospital on your right, a Quick Trip and McDonald's on your left, and just past McDonald's, literally on the other side of the alley, and Jim Baker's helped us with some things on the alley related to the McDonald's there, is this beautiful 5-story building. It's almost fully bricked right now. It is high quality, affordable housing that we are going to target transition age youth who are homeless and aging out of foster care. So if you think about kids who age out of foster care, are at risk for significant issues. If you age out of the foster care system, that essentially means you weren't adopted. The goal of foster care is, number one, to get kids back to their homes if it's safe. Number two, to get them adopted for permanency. If you turn 18 and you haven't gotten back to your home and you haven't been adopted, you're at high risk for homelessness, for significant issues from a mental health and a substance use disorder standpoint. 20 years ago, actually 20 years ago this year, is the anniversary of the creation of the Iowa Aftercare Services Network, led by George, really developed to meet the needs of kids aging out of foster care. YSS has successfully bid for and received our biggest contract 4 successive times over the last 20 years. So we'll be housing homeless youth. It's just a block away from DMAC. So it's a partnership with Rob Denson and what's going on at DMAC at the urban campus. And we've got that whole first floor are live work lofts. So essentially, young people who are entrepreneurial, who want to do something from a business standpoint. I talked to somebody recently who was an esthetician and she couldn't get a job. She said everybody else is like starting their own business. And she says, I can't afford a place. And I'm thinking, wow, this could be it. Because essentially you can have a storefront and you can live in a space that's affordable. We've got one office dedicated to counseling and financial literacy and case management as well. This is something that YSS wants to do here in Ames. So we want to develop affordable housing right here. We can do it at scale. We can, again, have to abide by fair housing, but really feel like there's a huge need here locally. We just need like 1.5 acres to get it done. So if anybody's got land that they're aware of where we could build affordable housing, we'd like to take advantage of it the next cycle. Also in Des Moines off of Euclid, so 235 Euclid, if you head east, there's a Hy-Vee on your left, there's a Walgreens on your right, and just beyond that is a social entrepreneurial project called YSS or IHYC Rooftop Gardens. So this is a workforce development program. So many of the kids that we serve in Des Moines who are homeless, who are not connected, they desire a job. They've got an interest in going to work to earn income, yet they don't have the experience that it takes oftentimes to get hired. And so we're going to put kids to work in 3-month fellowships. Half of the time we'll be in a classroom. Half of the time we'll be actually at this site growing, tending to, harvesting, packaging, selling leafy greens. We've purchased 2 retrofitted shipping containers, vertical hydroponic farms that grow up to the equivalent of 4 acres of leafy greens. And so we're looking to partner. We're having conversations with Hy-Vee and Fairway and Lafredo Fresh Foods. This is a workforce development project that's innovative from a social entrepreneurial standpoint in that we get to sell the leafy greens to help then sustain the program going forward. And this is also scalable too. These retrofitted shipping containers, you can continue to buy them and scale them up and put them at different locations. It's pretty exciting. And gosh, there's a lot of words on this slide. My marketing person, Amy's probably not gonna like this so much, but I did want to talk a little bit about the current state of youth mental health in this country. If you're following along, the Surgeon General in December, U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory on youth mental health kind of coming out of the pandemic. Look at these statistics. 19% of high school youth have considered suicide in the last year. 16% had made a plan. This is up 36 and 44% respectively over the last decade. Suicide rates have increased by 57% also, and this is even through 2018, even pre-pandemic. We're just at the onset of the release of some really important data in the state of Iowa. Iowa every 3 years completes the Iowa Youth Survey. They study and they ask questions of 6th, 8th, and 11th graders across the state. Organizations like YSS use that information to write for grants, to understand trends, to kind of see where things are going, to ensure that we're creating programs to meet needs. They've done a pre-release of information of the Iowa Youth Survey earlier this month that's just dedicated to youth mental health. Here are the statistics, guys. 36% of Iowa's youth in 6th, 8th, and 11th grade have felt sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more within the last year. That's over a third, 1 in 3. In just the past 12 months, there were questions that asked, have you thought about killing yourself? 20% of girls, 14% of boys have thought about it. Of those, half had a plan. 23% had attempted suicide. So I did the math. If you've got a class of 20 kids, one has attempted suicide in the last year, all right? That's in every middle school and high school classroom in the state. So this is a crisis. This is at epidemic proportions. That the mental health needs are overwhelming. Brian's not here, but they're overwhelming his emergency department. They're putting a huge drain on resources from a community standpoint. It's creating a significant need from a clinical standpoint for clinicians and licensed mental health therapists. We have waiting lists to be seen. And there's a workforce crisis, right, to boot. So these are stark numbers. And if I'm honest, and I'm going to get maybe a little bit vulnerable here, I love my job. I had my dream job at Principal, where I used to give out $15 million a year, help manage their charitable giving. This is my dream job, right? To go to work for an organization whose mission is to create hope and opportunity, who's on the front edge of addressing community needs. When I hear about a young person dying by suicide, it's overwhelming. And when it happens again and again, it's difficult sometimes to see our way out. And so I think a lot about influence, and I think a lot about, the people in this room. As you are major employers, right? Your philanthropists, your people that are focused on education and have influence across the state. There's, from my standpoint, just no greater need right now than ensuring that we've got the behavioral health resources to address this overwhelming need. And if we don't help them when they're kids, right? Then we're dealing with a homeless population in the community that we can't meet the needs of. If we don't address it when they're young, the chances of recovery are just that much less. So from my standpoint, there's nothing more important here. There is a contagious element to death by suicide as well. There were 10 young people ages 10 to 14 in Des Moines after the start of the calendar year over a 6-week time frame. 10 kids in Polk County who had committed suicide, died by suicide. So those are stark, but it's setting up just how great the need is and how much we need each of you at the table to help address what's going on. So our response, there is the governor created 3 years ago, the Children's Behavioral Health System State Board. I have the honor and privilege of sitting on that. But really what happens is, a local response within the communities across the state. It is our North Star. I'm going to share a little bit about, the role that YSS is playing to address the needs across the community. This vision that we've got to create 1 million connections. Some of the ways that we're putting pandemic relief funds to use, crisis stabilization, and then we're going to finish up with our campus and a conversation. So EOS, based on a lot of different principles, but one is, good to great, and Jim Collins says, create a big, hairy, audacious goal, right? So we've done that. Like I said, we've got a double bottom line, not to get into strategy, but this is the 5-year target. This is our North Star. And it's to do 2 things. Number one, actually I didn't put the bottom one. There's a financial one. So there's one around financial stability, but the other is about impact. And so over the next 5 years, and this is kind of in anticipation, hard to believe it, George, that 4 years and a few months will be our 50th anniversary. So as our 50th anniversary, kind of as the gift back to the community, is we started an initiative 10 months ago to create 1 million substantive and intentional connections. So this isn't happenstance. It's like a therapy appointment, a 45-minute session over therapy. It happens within our residential treatment programs. It might happen within teen maze. In the areas of health, self-sufficiency, education, and safety. We're tracking all of these. We're counting on it. We're reporting on it on a quarterly basis. And so we are intent to leverage connections to help create outcomes. Overwhelmed will be the wrong word, but hard to keep track of all the funding that's been coming from the feds and through the state and the counties and different regions and areas. We're very, very grateful. Lisa, welcome to Rotary. Glad to have you. You've been a great friend to YSS and this cause for a lot of years. Story County recently, while it's not official, they've announced kind of the general plans for their funding. Did award $1.1 million to YSS to help with rapid rehousing. So again, back to the affordable housing nature of the needs, the kids and transition age youth that we're serving. And then the state got money to provide and get into the hands of kids who've aged out of foster care. I talked about that previously. They came to YSS and said, we've got $5 million. YSS didn't get the money. We got the privilege of helping to get it into the hands of these kids from an emergency needs standpoint. So, really working hard to get money into the hands of kids who are experiencing crisis situations because of the pandemic. We have rolled out and deployed a new residential crisis stabilization program. So we've probably heard about the mobile crisis that exists. We've had presentations here at Rotary. It's an important tool serving both kids and adults. Mary Greeley is running, I believe it's Mary Greeley. Initially, they partner with somebody else, is running an adult crisis stabilization program with support from the city and the county. And YSS is piloting, again, YSS created the first emergency shelter for runaway and homeless youth in the state, George did. And so we were the first also to provide residential crisis stabilization in the state. We started it in North Iowa just over 2 years ago. And then last year rolled it out here in Story County. So you can kind of see the two regions where we're providing it. This essentially is, think a young person who is in a crisis situation at home where it doesn't rise to the level of needing emergency room or hospitalization, but they can't stay at home. And so as police are doing interventions, as families are aware of the service, as referral sources understand the needs that exist, YSS can take a young person for 24 hours to up to, I think, 10, sometimes 2 weeks, with the entire goal of stabilizing a situation, intervening before a hospitalization or a removal from the home, and then working hard to get kids and families connected with resources to be able to maintain stability going forward. So know that this program exists. YSS is running it in these regions, and will continue to provide crisis stabilization on a residential standpoint. This might be a little bit old. This was a couple years ago. Iowa ranks 48th in the country as it relates to the availability of behavioral health beds. Here's some interesting statistics as well. 7,000 kids in Iowa need treatment, substance use disorder treatment every year. 7,000 and don't get it. Many of them don't know how to get plugged in. Some of them are actually leaving the state for treatment. 1 in 6 will have a substance use disorder over a lifetime. So I think about, here we're on campus at Iowa State, as it used to be 36,000. I could divide that by 6, but I can divide 30 by 6 too. So 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 has it. That's 5,000 students here at Iowa State with a substance use disorder. Start using before they're 18 years of age. 9,000 Iowa youth experience each year in this state. As I said, the needs are obviously very high. So YSS has been around for 46 years addressing those needs out of old houses. George had a great vision for residential, home-like, community-based services. And so You're looking at 2 houses right here in Ames, one that's on the National Historic Registry where George Washington Carver lived for a period of time when he came from Simpson to Iowa State. Recovery house, and then we've got a 712 house. It's been in a couple of different locations, but here in this house. These have been great spaces to provide treatment to a ton of kids for a lot of years. It's no longer the right tool for the job, just given the acuity and the needs of the kids and the families that we're serving. So here's a video if it works. For more than 45 years, YSS has been creating hope and opportunity, operating programs from old houses in a residential neighborhood. But given the increased need across the state, it's no longer the right tool for the job. More than 7,000 kids need treatment every year in Iowa and don't get it. Now there's hope. Treatment works and recovery is possible.
I'm most grateful to YSS for really struggling.
We're creating a best-in-class program alongside best-in-class facilities on a best-in-class site.
The thing that gets me the most excited about the new campus is going to be allowing the kids to be out in nature, to be able to really ground themselves, be able to see the trees, see the wind, be able to feel the grass in their hands.
Road to recovery starts here. I wanted to show that because that puts a face on the program that we're and the campus that we're creating. Lisa was in the room. Somebody came up to me. There was an article in the paper over the weekend that talked about our project, that talked about the trauma-informed nature, the partnership that we've got with Iowa State and Julie Stevens to be really intentional about the way that we go about this. And this is a big vision. This has been a vision for a while. We've known, I think George had it in the strategic plan, that Rosedale Shelter needed new space. And so, big ideas take time to develop and evolve. And I think that timing is everything, right, on so much of the work that we do across this community. So we had a site just outside of Ames for a period of time. You might remember that a couple of years ago, and we got sued by a neighbor. And I think it might still be in court potentially 4 years later. And so that obviously wasn't the right site. But the goal and the vision was, we've got these residential programs. If we can get these kids disconnected a little bit from the busyness of life, from the devices that we're all carrying around in our pocket, though I did forget my phone somewhere. If we can get them disconnected, if we can get them plugged into nature, there are so many therapeutic elements to being outside. Simply just walking from place to place outside, based on the research that we're doing, has therapeutic elements to it. If we could have space that was designed specifically to support treatment and do it in a trauma-informed way, we would have a chance to impact the lives of even more kids and get even better long-term results. So quick story, some of you know Dr. Jay Brown. He had called me a couple of years ago and said he was making a year-end gift, and I told him about this vision, and I told him I wanted to be nature-based, and we were looking for a site. And he's like, "Oh, I've got this land, 53 acres. It's just outside of Cambridge. It's centrally located. It'd be great." And I said, "Well, yeah, well, fantastic." I said, "Well, let's talk about it. I'll follow up in the next month or two." And it was because it was December, it was the holidays. It was busy. He was busy. And he, 30 minutes later, he sends me a text message. He says, "I've talked to my wife. I've talked to my kids. I'll meet you out there tomorrow." And he brought the deed with him. And so, so he donated this parcel of land, centrally located, 53 acres of majesty. It's timber and prairie. It's 10 minutes from Ames. It's 10 minutes from Ankeny. And it is set apart. It is not remote, but it is rural in nature. And so we had raised some funds, that's where I spend the majority of my time, is thinking about resource development. I work for Amy as it relates to to fundraising. So she leads fundraising. I work for her, having conversations and building relationships with individuals that want to create impact. And given the need that exists, given some of the funding changes that have taken place in the state as it relates to the way that mental health is funded from a regional standpoint, in a partnership with CICS, where you heard that Lisa Heddens sits on the board. She's one of the supervisors. Well, she's the only supervisor representing Story County. We found ourselves in a position to ask the region to support this project. And I know, I mean, generally our supervisors all get along pretty well if they can make decisions, you know, 3 of them at a time. But when you get one supervisor from every county in a regional area, sometimes it's hard to get alignment around decisions. And we came to the region with a proposal to help us get this thing done. And it happened over a series of meetings in a couple of months, but I will never forget the day. Amy was there, Lisa was there, where we asked the region, it was $12 million at the time. We'd raised $2 million. We had a supervisor say, how much of the 10 million were you going to ask us for? And I said, well, we need all 10 million. And the room kind of just went silent. And then he says, I'd like to make a motion, $10 million for YSS to get this done. And there was conversation. And then they took a roll call vote, and it was one at a time. And Lisa was right there. And each county, one at a time, in successive order, said aye. And we had a unanimous decision to approve $10 million to get this thing done. So this will happen. We break ground any moment now. So we've already started to move trees. We've got approval for planning and zoning, a board of adjustments. You know, as you know, there's supply chain issues and there's workforce issues. And so we're still saying spring or summer. So it's definitely breaking ground. The goal is we open the doors on this fall of 23. So this is a 70-bed, nature-based, trauma-informed campus that's going to serve the residential addiction treatment needs of both adolescents and transition age youth. So you think about 18 to 24-year-olds, kids at Iowa State who are more like kids than they are adults. I mean, essentially, you know, right now, if you're 19 years old and you need addiction treatment, where do you go? You go to an adult treatment program with 60-year-olds. Not that we don't like 60-year-olds, but it's probably not the right place to treat an adolescent, you know, a transition age youth. This will also have shelter, so emergency shelter for, you know, where the only requirement for admissions is that you have been abused or neglected by your family. And this will also include beds for crisis stabilization. So this is, thank you, I appreciate it. This is our most ambitious project ever. We have slow playing might be the right word. We have not done the full on announcement. You know, it's been in the paper. They've talked about the trauma informed nature of this. They talked about the gift of the land. They talked about the CICS gift. We're planning an open house. We think it's June 1, where we're going to announce, show you the official renderings and plans, and also have a name for the campus. This is, like I said, our most ambitious project ever. The $12 million project is probably turned into an $18 million project at this point. We've got nearly $14 million raised, so enough to push forward with construction and ensure that this is available and ready for kids and families who are suffering from abuse and neglect and crisis situations, as well as addiction. You know, and I think that addiction has a lot of facets to it, right? You know, I came from an alcoholic home and had it in my genes, but so many kids from the mental health standpoint are self-medicating today, right? And the fear that we have as an organization, and I think we should have as a community, is the diminishing risk, perception of risk as it relates to use of marijuana. So we've got medical marijuana, and I am not going to take a side up here as it relates to the medicinal value of marijuana. Generally, you know, we don't think about smoking medicine, but it's coming, right? It's on either side of us, you know, recreational use, not just the medical use. And here's, I think, what we can all get behind. kids, just like they shouldn't be drinking alcohol, should not be smoking pot. And more kids don't think it's that big of a deal. And they are susceptible to addiction, especially when they're using at an early age. And so I just see the problem, unfortunately, getting worse, not better. And I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to build out this campus, alongside the support of the community to ensure that I meet the needs. How can you help? I don't know. I have no idea what time it is. I feel like I probably can have plenty of time for questions, but you also, nobody ever minds getting out of Rotary a little early. How can you help? We always have one response when we get asked that question: champion, invite, and invest. Be a champion for this cause, for this organization, for human services in general, for the work that organizations like YSS are doing across this community. Champion our cause. Invite. I'm guessing there's somebody in this room who knows somebody that would like to hear about this campus project that could be helpful to us in some way. If you would make that introduction for me or for Amy, if you would bring somebody along. I had a teacher over the weekend reach out. I get emails like this regularly. Teacher over the weekend, retired from Ames. She's got a focus on nature-based education, and she's asking, how can I help? Right? Julie Stevens, Iowa State Associate Professor, Landscape Design, who's one of the foremost experts on trauma-informed design in the state, was connected to this project, and she's playing a significant role. So think about people that you feel like might want to know more about this. And if you would make that introduction, invite them to know Amy or I would appreciate that. And then invest. So I'm not making the pitch here today, but we are always asking people to invest time, talent, and treasure. And many of you have already contributed to this project. Time, talent, or treasure. We still have, maybe $5 million to raise. And so we're hot on the trail, but we need the community to continue to support it. And then, it's not just the financial support, but it's your time and your talents as well. Maybe you've got a way that you feel like you could be impactful to the work that we're doing. And we would love to partner with you. Here's the final way that you can be helpful. And I can't not tell you about the workforce crisis that we are experiencing right now. We have 95 open positions, full and part-time. Now, a lot of them, just for context, are summer positions. 40 of those, almost 40 of those are summer positions for our kids club and our summer enrichment program, but 95 open seats. So what that means is kids aren't getting served. And our workforce, the 300 plus employees that we do have more weight on them to get stuff done. So if you could share with someone in your world or your network about the purpose-driven opportunities that exist here, maybe you are interested yourself in volunteering or taking on a second career. Maybe you know someone that wants to do purpose-driven work. Maybe you know somebody that's going to school right now and thinking about human services. We've got Dean Jolly is on our board, and so she's been a huge help as it relates to our recruiting efforts. We're fortunate here in Ames to have so many high-quality individuals coming through Iowa State University. Continue to have a significant need. I put some, our employee value proposition up there. So our employees feel like we're doing a good job. We offer full-time employees more than 4 weeks of vacation out of the gate and have career advancement opportunities. The biggest need that we have is for clinicians, mental health therapists. Something happened 3 years ago where a temporarily licensed clinician can go to work for a private practice, billing private insurance. That didn't used to be the case. They used to have to come to organizations like YSS to bill Medicaid. We're one of the few providers. There's kind of a safety net of providers, community mental health centers, that serve the Medicaid population because the reimbursements for Medicaid are low for most all of the other providers. So it's difficult to get, especially kids, to be seen in private practice. 3 years ago, it changed. Temporarily licensed clinicians can now bill private insurance. And so what's happening is this crop of therapists that used to come to YSS, we'd lose 3 or 4 every year, and we'd hire 3 or 4 every year, are all going straight to private practice. And they're doing it for a few different reasons, but it's mainly economic. So we're changing our model. We are going to adapt and look a little bit more like a private practice for those that are interested in building their own book of business, in not having the traditional benefits of a salaried or full-time employment, and wanting to make a higher dollar amount when you don't have to pay benefits. So we've got that. We've got a $5,000 sign-on and stay bonus. So therapists that are currently with us, but it's our greatest need. We could probably hire, we've got 6 open positions. We could probably hire 10 clinicians today, just based on the need that exists within the community, the waiting lists that are starting to build, the kids that aren't getting seen, and the community that exists. So this was the first slide on a presentation I did last week. It's my last slide today. That's my intake photo in 1995. You can see all the white hair, right? I was 17 3/4 years of age. I was desperate and hopeless. Couldn't stand authority or being told what to do. I did not want to be in treatment, but it was a better alternative than jail, which is what I was facing, adult charges and detention in jail. For 6 weeks, I fought it tooth and nail. I told staff what they could do with their treatment plan. And then I had a moment of surrender, right? We're on my knees through tears. I said the most honest prayer in my life. And I just said, I can't keep living like this anymore. God help me. And my life hasn't been the same since. Spent 4.5 months in this program that was, life transforming, life saving. George came to my graduation. I didn't know George or who he was, but I know today he would come to graduations because they gave him energy. This is hard work. And so he would come for the hope that exists in this room. So he came to my graduation. He said some encouraging things. He must have got my contact information, because shortly thereafter, he's asking if he can write me up for a newsletter, right? Just like George did. Put me in a newsletter. Then he invited me to the Knoll to speak at some fundraiser, right? Then he nominated me for some award, right? Then he put me on his board. And he just kept encouraging me. Like, I'm a drug addict, alcoholic, punk kid that had been expelled from school, diagnosed as sociopath. Arrested for felonies on my 10th birthday. And George believed in me more than I believed in myself. And the next thing I know, I'm finishing high school and college, and I went to work for a great company, principal, and I heard George was retiring. I'd been connected for a lot of years as a volunteer. I signed up to be on the committee to find a successor because I wanted to find somebody good. I love YSS. I had the best job in the state, guys. Used to give away 15 million. I used to get taken to lunch a lot. Now, Amy and I got to take a lot of people to lunch. Right now, I got to raise 20 million a year. And before the interview started, enough people had reached out to me and said, "Hey, why aren't you applying for the job?" I'm like, "I got the best job in the state. Why would I work for a nonprofit?" And I just felt called to throw my hat in the ring. And I had no idea what I was in for. I had no idea how consuming this would be, but how purpose-driven it would be as well. So this is my life's work. I'm grateful every day, George, for your vision, your commitment to me, the belief that you had in me, and this opportunity that I've got to continue, right alongside more than 300 YSSers statewide to carry on your legacy. I met with a kid this morning who's graduating tomorrow. Okay, so he's headed home to Okoboji. He told me his story, not too dissimilar to mine. He turns 17 tomorrow, and I'm confident that he's got the foundation, right, that he needs to stay sober a day at a time. What's required now is that community that he comes back to be supportive and receptive, and so that's the role that everybody here has today. There are kids who are hurting. There are families that don't know where to turn. represented right here in this room. And the great thing is there is hope, right? Treatment works, recovery is possible, and there's plenty of organizations like YSS. It's not just YSS that are there to help. So grateful for all of you. Oh, it's 101.
It's okay. Thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. If you do have a question that is burning, he will maybe stay for a couple minutes after. You can ask him a few questions or grab his email address and shoot it to him that way. But thank you so much. I know you know the drill about the book, so I'll have you autograph that, Andrew, after our program. And please stand for the 4-way test. The things we think, say, or do